What is a job that pays well and requires no college experience? Story 1. To be truthful, I'm surprised I managed to get this good-paying job even without going to college. I have to admit, though, that this job has changed my life after working 5 years as a shift supervisor in a warehouse. When I began my career in the house, I was only young and went to work to pay the rent, packing boxes, delivering goods, and so forth. The pay was fair for someone with no experience. Plus, I appreciated that I did not have to bring any work or stress home. A few months later, on the other hand, my supervisor began to pay attention to how inexplicable it was that I could defy the odds, even in the most chaotic shifts. I was that guy who always covered for everyone. Lost pallets, missed delivery, you name it. In the end, they convinced me that I should accept the post of a shift supervisor. I was hesitant initially, but new salary and other packages changed my mind. At present, I am overseeing 15 members of the crew as we try to accomplish the set targets and also keep every other activity in place. It's not all bed of roses, though. There are instances, especially at night, when we are very busy, and I have to wear several hats to control the chaos. However, this is what I wanted from the first place: working, especially on the issues of time management and how to lead without cracking under pressure. The salary is not bad at all, considering how I did not expect such to receive such pay without attending a university. Benefits? Outstanding, complete medical coverage, 401k with company contribution, and seasonal bonus, just to name a few. I have pals who went to college for 4 years and got the degree yet no jobs, while I, sans loans, am pursuing a career. Employment at this level is what I have never envisioned in my entire life. But this job has shown me that sometimes you don't need a degree to be successful. Story 2. I never thought this day would come in my life. After 4 years, I found myself working behind a truck's wheel, and I don't think I would regret it. Back in high school, everyone had a save, everyone had a purpose. College, vocational schools, internships, and job placements, but me. I worked unnecessarily a pair of fast food jobs, and trust me, there wasn't much left on the side after paying all the bills. My uncle, who has always been in the trucking business, advised me to try it out, so I did. After a few weeks of training and getting my CDL, I started working as a truck driver. It was a bit scary on the first days, operating such a huge machine, but I got used to it quickly. To my surprise, long-haul truck driver salary is remarkably high, most especially now when there is a shortage of drivers. Considering the number of loads that I take on, I can earn over £70,000 above the average salary normal people earn. Closer to £90,000 if I'm really pushing it. Well, let me be clear. Not everyone takes this kind of lifestyle easily. There is hardly any work-life balance. I have days whereby I am on the road performing my duties for at least 6 weeks, sleeping in my small bunk located behind the driver's seat, eating food from the convenient gas stations, and fighting drowsiness with low-quality coffee. It does get boring, and one surely spends time away from the loved ones. An upside, however, for me, has been the risky venture. I've developed a level of self-management and structure that I've never previously possessed, and I've seen areas of the nation that I had no idea existed. Plus, being able to handle my finances has gotten me to places I never thought I'd go, such as a new car, and even a house in the near future. This is not a job for me that I can do forever. I do not imagine myself at this job at the age of 50, but for a person who did not want to go into debt while in college and had to earn a good salary, trucking has been a real turning point. Story 3. Acquiring the job I currently hold with an $80,000 salary per year, even without a degree, was something I knew was going to be very difficult. But today here I am, in charge of several apartment complexes. It is crazy because I did not graduate from college. I dropped out because I knew for sure that I was going to get stuck in a low-paying job with no opportunities. I got in when a friend of mine, who was a maintenance guy with a property management company, told me that there was an opening to do paperwork and deal with the tenants. Why not? I loved speaking to people, and I was quite tidy, so I went on to submit my application. The first few months were literally blood, sweat, and tears. Calls coming at night banging about a toilet that is overflowing, collecting rent, and the worst, a trouble tenant who did everything to disturb my peace. But after I learned to adapt to the barrage of problems one after another, it began to make sense. The problem arises in property management because every day is a different experience. Scheduling repairs for one day and dealing with an irate tenant the next, because the tenant cannot take the noise from a neighbor blasting his music. You've got to be adaptable, and honestly, that is what makes it quite engaging. In the process, I was able to foster a good rapport with a number of contractors and mastered the art of leasing, and even delved into the basics of the law concerning tenants' rights. Now, with a few years in the industry under my belt, I manage several properties and the salary is not bad at all. The most surprising thing: there are no student loans that I need to pay back every month. I'm a living example of how most times all it takes is plunging into the deep end and figuring things out on the job, including being that person who does not mind making 3 a.m. phone calls when the water heater is leaking. Story 4. That was at the time when I could not afford to survive in the city working thankless retail jobs, and one friend of mine spoke about his cousin who had taught himself web programming and landed a nice manufactured IT job at the end of it. No diploma, no costly coding classes, just online lectures and YouTube channels. To be honest, I fobbed it off initially anyway. Like, how can someone possibly expect to build a real career off something so straightforward? But the months went on, and that bill my paycheck turned into kept growing, so I figured I may as well give it a stab. I went on the App Store and got the first few free coding applications which helped to understand the basics of HTML and CSS, and what followed after these two was a Python course together with almost all its entry-level networking. To be honest, it was akin to drinking from a fire hydrant. But I persevered, making time for it in between shifts. I undertook some small tasks, such as creating a budget app, and even took it a step further by putting some of the processes at work on autopilot, which my boss appreciated. Somewhere around half a year, I gathered enough guts to seek a position in an entry-level IT support job. I assumed, in the best case, I did manage to gain something of an interview practice. But then, to my shock, they rang me back and offered me the post. The entry-level salary offered to me was almost 2 times what I was earning in retail, and in less than 12 months I'd grown into a network admin. I am now making more money than I thought possible for someone without a degree. In retrospect, all it required was determination, regularity, and an internet connection. Story 5. I never imagined I would earn good money through the process of junking cars, but this old man who owns a junkyard is perhaps the richest man I have ever worked for. He had this system. He would drive around looking for people who needed to dispose off their old junk cars and would offer to buy those cars for almost free. This is where I came in. My work was to dismantle those vehicles completely, take out the converters, cut the tires into half, pull out any useful part, and sift through the rest for better scrap metal. It wasn't pretty, but for some reason it was well-paying. I would only work for a period of about 5 hours in a day, and by the end of the shift I would have $300 bill ready in cash. No forms to fill, no incidents creepy taxes, just cash in hand to go home with. And when the cars ceased to exist, he would do a 180 and order me to sweep the gun ranges. The amount of wasted brass and shells which I took for scrap was amazing, and even though he made bank off of the scraps, he still made it a point to pay me good. It was filthy and tiring, and once in a while, even revolting, but as I did not require higher education or any qualifying experience to perform it, every day proved to be a victory. Story 6. I never even thought about working in construction until I did it for 6 long years and earned more than most of my friends who have college degrees. Immediately after finishing high school, I was utterly blank regarding any career aspirations. I didn't feel like going to college and wasn't ready to go into debt without having a solid plan. I was offered a job by my uncle who managed a small construction crew, who informed me that there was need for another pair of hands, and so I gave it a shot. To put it simply, it was excruciating at the beginning. The working hours were too long, the jobs were physically demanding, and I had no knowledge of how to use tools or even the building terminologies. The first few months I spent mostly moving materials around, cleaning up job sites and making sure not to get in anyone's way. But slowly yet steadily, things began to make sense. The guys on the crew were step by step, instructing me on how to take measurements and cuts and eventually on how to construct. Come second year, I was already a pupil of a master carpenter, where I practiced from framing to finish work. That is when I discovered my perfect fit. Custom woodwork products are very expensive and found that I have the talent for it. Currently, I concentrate on fine cabinets and custom built-ins, and I have achieved a six-figure income despite the fact that I have never been to college. The best part? It is not only the salary, but of course, it is quite good as well. It is the satisfaction that comes from a job well done. I can drive around in the city and mention numerous buildings that I contributed in their construction. It's physical evidence of what I have achieved, and I would give it up for nothing. Story 7. I never really saw a future for myself in hotels. But here I am, 12 years later as a general manager of a luxury resort, making six figures. It all started at that time when I was 19 years of age, high school complete with no dreams of future employment and even less of money to go to college than I have now. I looked for any help I could get and ended up forward my resume for a front desk position at some flimsy 3-star hotel. As it happened, they needed warm bodies who had a pulse and little else. I smiled and showed up and they hired me. The compensation was ridiculous. About all it was good for was keeping my old clunker of a car moving and paying for the occasional roadside junk food, if even that much, but I thought, well, at least it was something. However, little did I know that this feeling would make me so happy. Ever since I can remember, I have been a people lover, and it turns out I am quite good at that, handling tensions and resolving whatever that would be. Angry clients, messed up booking systems, you name it. After some time, about a year actually, they made me a front desk supervisor. It was not much of a salary increase. Still, there was more accountability attached to it and a distinct upward mobility. I began to look around, how the housekeepers worked, how the food and drink divisions were organized, and how the repairs were done so as not to disrupt the work process outside guest relations. I didn't, however, remain at the first hotel for an eternity. Every few years, I would change hotels and seek a higher position in a better hotel. When I was 26 years old, I got to the post of assistant manager in a 4-star hotel, and this was the age when a lot of money began to pour in. The shift from simply supervisor to a management level was very significant, and not only from the standpoint of salary, but also in the aspects of benefits and prospects. Now at the age of 31, I am the manager of a 5-star resort, and the offers are outrageous. Allowances, sharing of profits, free accommodation in associated properties, even a budget for wining and dining assigned clients. All of this. And I did not even step into a college. It was not always straightforward. However, I am a living example that building a good career is possible even in hospitality business, along with putting in the efforts. Story 8. At the most unexpected moment, I had never imagined that I would be facing the customer support in the semi-truck. However, it has been already 5 years, and rather fortunately, instead of most of my peers from college, I make more money. After high school, there was nothing of better concern than fried potatoes for burgers, in brief, scrolling through social media looking at the photos of my friends who had gone for college while I worked night shifts. One day, a patron talking to me mentioned how he worked as a truck driver. It was nice as you get to travel the country. Great income with no need for education apart from the commercial driver's license. That intrigued me. Approximately 2 months went by, and I did it. I enrolled myself into a driving trailer school, and in a matter of weeks I was driving an 18-wheeled truck. The first year was quite a challenge. Working long hours, sleeping in any truck square stops, cities that I did not even know existed. But the checks? The pay? Completely worth it. Fast forward now, I am doing 6 figures, my savings are good, and I am thinking of even getting my own truck so that I can run my own business. In the meantime, all my peers from college are still paying their debts and looking for an entry-level position. Even though I do not hold a degree, I enjoy being independent financially, as well as this job that has enabled me to travel to places I never thought was possible. Story 9. Becoming a plumbing technician is something I never thought would happen. Quite on the contrary, up to this point, my career choice seems to have been one of the best, if not the best decision that I have made. I had just completed my high school education, and understanding my career aspirations was still a mirage. One thing, however, was clear. I would not go to college, sitting in a hall for lectures for several hours, incurring debts. Not a chance. There is this family friend, who is a plumbing master, who encouraged me to go for plumbing. Initially, I did not believe in it. After all, what do you associate with plumbing? Some guy with a wrench and tons of tools hanging on his belt, right? However, after only 1 week of spending time with him, I understood that plumbing is more than just a plumber's tackle. Except at the back room, of course, where I am sure there is more than just the hammers and saws. Each day presented a problem that needed a solution: a clogged toilet, a broken pipe, or putting in an entire new plumbing system. And the best one? The money. After the forgiveness of my in-school training, the practicum, and the long examinations, I finally acquire the further plumbing skill known as, "Thus I am in the money now." I mean, why stay still on the threshold and earn, for instance, $75,000 a year and well climbing? Some exotic celebration may involve even more overtime. At the same time, some of my friends who attended the university and college for degrees have remained on a scrape-by basis for most parts and are still trying to pay their student loans lifelong. And me, I have no debts and earn enough to even think of the down payment of a house. However, it is not all about the cash. There is something rewarding about appreciating your worth. People cannot stay without water, heat, or sanitation. When such facilities fail, people want help from you right away. Where one does not suffer from downtime, and as one can imagine in this day, it is a very important factor. Yes, it can be messy and very physically straining, but I would rather enjoy that than being confined behind a desk any given day. Story 10. Believing that I will work on the railroad was far from my imagination. But here I am, and if I might add, being a train conductor surprisingly pays well, considering that one does not need to possess a university degree. It all began with a simple statement. A friend of mine said that she heard there was a railroad hiring people. I had recently finished high school and was going through one of those awkward periods of teenage odd jobs with no idea of what I wanted to accomplish. Since there was nothing to lose, I decided to try whether or not I would find the other side of the canyon. The training was no joke intensive on the job training, which lasted a couple of months. But here is the best news. My training was an in-house monetized training course. I was officially a rookie, and my pay scale increased tremendously. I mean $75,000 a year, and how about if we include the overtime? Certainly more than 6 digits. It could be physically demanding, though. Work may involve extended hours, sometimes at odd hours of the night and with no clear assurance of when your work shift might end. For one, I am sometimes out in the bitter cold or extreme heat, but then again there is also a soothing feeling, particularly when you are passing through some sleepy little towns or when the sky is basked in the sun over vast stretches of land. This hasn't all been picturesque, though. One has to remain active and focused all the time, engage in pleasant communication with engineers, and sometimes handle minor problems or unpleasant passengers. The advantages take it all the way up. They have good health coverage, a decent retirement benefits package, with the extra bonus being that me and my family travel free by train. To be honest, I never pictured myself in a job like this, but right now, I can't imagine anything else. It is a testament that one can easily find a good-paying job with a lot of satisfaction without having a degree. However, if you are willing to put in the time and effort and can live with some level of unpredictability, pursuing a career as a train conductor might be just the answer. Story 11. Lamentably, I never envisaged that doing a job will enable me to enter a house with a theater. I happen to be a nanny, and the whole thing began quite simply. In high school, for a few hours a day, I would help take care of my neighbors' children. It was nothing sophisticated, just helping them with their schoolwork and preventing them from wreaking havoc in the house. After a few months, however, things began to change. One day, a call came through from a lady in a town not so far from where I lived, inquiring whether I could babysit her 2 children. They were paying $25 an hour, which seemed ludicrous at that point in time, so naturally, I obliged. That's when the action really begun. This family's residence was a throwback to the movie Home Alone: marble flooring, an indoor jacuzzi, even personal cooks. My work? Mostly playing with kids and occasionally preparing light meals. I would tell stories, build with Legos, and occasionally mediate fights between the children. Best of all, the parents welcomed me as one of their kin. I would be asked to stay for supper and once even went on vacation with them. The first time they flew me out on one of their vacations, it was to the Bahamas first-class tickets, 5-star hotels, the whole package. Not even in my wildest dreams did I think I would be paid to be in that place. Otherwise, it is not all cheers and props. One has to be on top all the time because a lot is anticipated from these families. You are not just any babysitter. You play many roles. You are a nurturer, an educator, and sometimes even a counselor. Nannying for families has its bows and arrows. Respect and trust is something you learn to gain, and like every other valuable virtue, it is not in vain. There are guys who sit down and earn 6 figures in wages, which I've been told about nannies, and while I have not reached that level just yet, it is getting closer to that mark every year. More so without stressing, taking debts, or even having to go through the processes of pursuing a degree. Only hard work, engaging with children, and a little bit of madness is required.